hasn't anybody ever played poor vampires? You know, like trailer park vampires. It just never seems to come up. It just...
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't imply the kind of legacy that you'd expect. Like, you just hope that if, you know, oh, I'm poor now, but given 300 years, I should learn something about economics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just... I don't know. It just doesn't happen.
Or just, well, I mean, it's that long period. It's like, I'll put $1 in the bank, and then I'll be poor for 500 years.
And also, I guess, like, the thought is, if you're poor, you sort of expect to be accosted by the elements and different things. Like, okay, so you're a vampire, but if you don't have a house, you're still gonna get, like, fucked up by a tornado.
Well, I didn't mean like homeless poor. I just meant like lower middle class or something. You know, like
Maybe.
not aristocratic.
There might be the fear of, like, how well you can hide if you don't have some degree of autonomy that money gives you.
So it's just you need tons of connections to be a vampire, and if you like don't know like a judge and a police officer and someone at a blood bank, you're just gonna get staked.
You're gonna get
It's all political. It's not about who's the best vampire. It's all about who you know.
and what you, it's like, maybe that's just me, but when I think about it, yeah, like, you would need to know some people, or you're just gonna, you know, you're gonna go and kill someone and their family's gonna shoot you to death.
Yeah.
Like, even if, imagine
Vampire
being in a,
drive-by.
like, imagine being in a trailer park, right? You are the vampire of the trailer park, and you try and
my double Y.
Curls in your hair.
curls in your hair, and you're like waiting to, like, and then you, shotgun. Like, what? Why'd you do that? He was cheating on me, and with her, and I shot them both. It's like, and that's what would happen.
So what you're saying is we haven't yet discovered that vampires are in these places.
They are, we just don't know it. You know, you've seen the hickeys that come out of trailer parks.
Not personally.
We should edit all of that out. All of that should just go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cutting off the beginning of all these, so it's okay.
Yeah. That whole rambling
Although
thing.
when I listen to podcasts, I like the best part is always the part up until they say, okay, let's get started.
Anyway.
Now we are moving on to the strain. This is the second step in planning the feed campaign. Now that we've got the story profile up here in what is probably illegible black marker, we are going to create the strain of vampires and decide on all their different attributes, and then we're going to create characters to match that. So Katrina has the strain template, and I have the rules here, so we will get started. The first thing is aging. How do these vampires age? How fast? The default values given here are mortal, where you just age like a normal person, immortal, where you don't age at all, decomposing, which is like you're rotting and you have to feed to stop it. Obviously we need vampires who are long-lived, that's part of our concept. But how long-lived do we want to go, and do we want them to change over time? Because I know there was some mention of that.
Slowly but surely.
Like mild decomposition that takes a very long time. Like
I'm thinking sort of a la Dracula vampires, where you age over time slowly, so that you can live conceivably 200, 300 years.
So there is a death eventually for these vampires? Because
I'm not sure if I want them to die, but I feel like maybe this is just my thought, but it seems like if you've lived 300 years, you're going to want to check out for a while, possibly forever, because of the mental strain. I mean, just because you have a body that keeps going doesn't mean you're going to handle 300 years of experience very well. And I can see wanting to sleep even if you don't die.
And we don't want talking skeletons around, so we should...
Right.
Yeah.
Or the little creepy, like super aged doctor creatures.
Which is weird.
I like the idea of the mental capacity kind of being a burden too.
Yeah.
Like they get Alzheimer's, vampire Alzheimer's.
More like
They go crazy.
Not that severe, but...
more like traumatic stress, just the stress of living. Like
Just like the weight of memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's so what let's do is let's say very long lifespan, potentially unlimited. We don't know because they've only been around since 1754.
And we don't see some of the older members after a while.
Right. But
And maybe they do check in as Katrina said, maybe no one's bothered to try to live forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But vampires grow more monstrous and mentally unstable as they age. All these features are labeled like weak, neutral, or strong, just so we can kind of keep track of how strong a strain we're making. So to me, that sounds neutral
Yeah.
on balance, because you get to live forever, but then you go crazy. Appearance. This is how human, generally speaking, you look. There can be individual tells, but generally speaking, are these like clearly monstrous? Do they look just like normal people? Or are they like the traditional vampire that's pale and, you know, if you know what you're looking for, you can pick them out of a crowd?
Maybe some kind of family trait like eye color. It's very
I like
subtle, and you'd be able to notice if you're looking for a particular eye color. Maybe an eye pattern of some sort.
That'd be interesting.
There would also be, I mean, depending on how old the family is, maybe old world traits like, being shorter and, I don't know, other things. Like looking like you're from the 1700s versus
That'd be
modern.
cool.
That would be slightly conspicuous.
I like that. I like both these ideas. I think maybe, what if we have just like very strong family traits, such that people from the family tend to look.
Okay, so they're not inherently
Similar.
vampiric, but if somebody knows the
strong
family,
family
then
resemblance.
Yeah.
they know it's bad news.
And maybe you could even have like an effect of the blood that people who are brought in start to actually look a little bit like that. Like not totally full blown, but like
Like
maybe the
sure.
eye color.
Sure,
So it'd be
yeah.
kind of a weird thing, like that person starting to look different. Once you've lived in the house for a while, you start to look like the family.
That's cool.
I like that, yeah.
Cool.
That's
Do we have any specifics for appearance? I mean, are they all gonna, like, original Count Dracula, bushy eyebrows, start springing up on everybody?
I like the idea of an old world appearance, actually.
Okay.
I think that gives like the sense of a gothic story, because to me like the modern vampire is like sexy, leather, kind of, all like
shades.
action movie kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And to me like a more gothic approach to monsters is like, yeah, smaller stature, maybe like a little bit hunched, a little bit tight looking, kind of.
Like George Washington hair.
George,
No.
long powdered wigs, flow off the shoulder.
No, yeah, good. That's good. Maybe keep it a little vague.
Yeah.
We can always flesh it out as we have a little time to think about this, and we could, go online and look at pictures we like and say,
Sure.
maybe we want to say this sort of thing, or ooh, I really like the idea of this hair color with this eye color, and that's pretty striking. We could futz out those details over the next couple days.
You're saying it's an Irish family, so maybe red hair kind of runs.
That'd be cool. Red and blonde.
Blonde.
Okay. So yeah, distinctive, out of time look, blonde hair. So that's a neutral trait as well. Conspicuous, basically.
Now for feeding.
Yes, feeding.
Alright.
So this is like what happens when you feed. And the main thing we need to address is like, do they have fangs? How does this work?
I have always loved the old legends of vampires where they suck people's breath. I've always thought that was a lot scarier than just blood. And I don't know what you guys want to do, but I've always enjoyed that idea because you don't need conspicuous fangs and you don't need like, oh, I'm going to get sacks of blood. And it doesn't really you don't have to worry about a lot of the chemistry of being a vampire. Like, if that person has drugs in their system, do I have drugs in my system now? I don't know.
I like it. What do you guys
That's
think?
cool.
Yeah. I feel like there should be some blood involved, but maybe that's the induction thing. Maybe that's like,
The breath of life.
yeah,
so
like
transmitting to the family.
you drink some blood from the family and become
Okay.
inducted.
So you can't turn people by feeding. Yeah, it's more of a.
Right. You have to deliberately, like, you give your blood to drink to someone,
Okay.
and they become a member of the family, and then when they feed, it's breath. And then maybe we could have some little effect, like, I don't know, maybe this is dumb, I don't know, but I'm thinking like something like this pressure on the mouth, and then maybe like blood coming to the surface a little bit, like some kind of, I don't know. It feels like there should be blood involved in feeding to at least some
Yeah.
extent. But I don't know. I really like the breath. I think that's what we should do.
I like that. That would be good.
It just makes me think of when people are like in a vacuum and they like bleed from the eyes and like ears and stuff.
Oh, that
intense
would be
feeding
interesting.
could have that effect.
Maybe that's it, like you feed on someone's vital spirits, like you steal their breath,
Yeah.
and then I'm just thinking like, I've had a collapsed lung. You cough up blood, you lose blood if you can't breathe because you have so much delicate tissue in your lungs and along your esophagus and different things. They could actually, once you've fed on their breath, if you feed for too long, you actually start to draw blood from them as their lungs are damaged.
And that
or
could be
their
the
vital.
prolonged feeding.
Mhm.
Okay. So yeah, vampires feed on vital spirit or breath, but victims of intense feeding bleed incidentally.
Mhm.
You're right, that is.
I think that's scary because you don't just like, oh well, I'm gonna wear a metal neck collar and then I'm
Mhm.
fine. It's
Yeah.
like, how do you stop that? It's hard to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I think the fact that there's some blood involved, but that's not the main thing, and these are vampires, contributes to the feeling that this is so wrapped in secrecy and rumor. Like, the idea of what a vampire is wrong.
Actually,
Because
yes.
other people don't actually know how this works. It's just, they've lived here a long time and some stories have gotten out, but people don't really understand it.
And I like the idea of like, for people who have been fed on by these vampires, it would be much easier, like, because there's always like the telltale marks and blah. It's like, no. It's like, I got you drunk and
Just
you
kind
have
of like a
this.
sickness consumption
Feeling
spreading through
awful.
town, but no one knows exactly why. It doesn't really make sense as a disease, but what else is it?
The conditions don't always match up, people have different
Mhm.
experiences. It's like, well, I was drinking with so-and-so from that family, and I have this awful memory,
Shared a soda can and then
but I'm not really sure what happened because there's no marks. I feel a little sick, but I was drinking. And I remember them being over my face and feeling drained, but I don't know. That would be very, very scary.
Yeah, well, he had mentioned the consumption about it. I'm like, perhaps that could be the cause of tuberculosis too, going around, that there's a big spread.
The white
That
death.
could, yeah.
or maybe it mimics a disease.
It's similar to
And then
the
they'll pass it off as that because they cough up blood.
Right.
and they could have damage to the tissues. It would be very similar in the pathology.
Okay, cool. So we got that. I'd go so far as to call that a strong trait.
Yeah.
That's a weak strong, but it's a strong because it's mostly undetectable, hard to guard against. Doesn't leave a particularly telltale corpse. All right, so physiology. How alive are these vampires? Are they biologically alive? Like, are their organs functioning and all that? All the way to the spectrum to dead, where like you can destroy the brain and the corpse keeps moving. Like it has nothing to do with biology at all.
I would think alive, maybe. Well,
The middle ground here is undead.
yeah. I'm just trying to think how that would work with
I almost see it
life
ranging like,
essences.
if they're drawing spirit or life essence from other people, then they're almost like an animated puppet in a way. So at
Yeah.
full life
Similar to a
essence, they're
golem.
fully alive, everything's working, and
As it slowly wears
as
off.
they don't feed, or maybe even as they get older and it's harder to maintain that, they, get
Fade.
more undead-ish. But I don't like the idea of headless aristocrats wandering around.
No.
Yeah.
I kind of like that idea. Like, if you have fed, then you are fully alive. You have the vital spirit, and when those are gone, or when you have less of those, you are closer to dead.
So you get more
You're-
conspicuous
You
as
get
don't
paler.
feed.
Yeah.
Your pulse is slowed. Your breathing is slowed, and that might be part of why we're not so sure how long they last. Like some of the oldest ones maybe are resting, and like maybe their heart beats every couple of days. But no one's bothered to watch for them that closely because it's just so odd.
Okay, so let's say undead by default, but well-fed vampires appear biologically alive.
That could also help with the illusion of having servants in the house taking care of everybody,
Mhm.
feeding.
And
Yeah,
pressure,
like eating food.
pressure to
good
feed
stuff.
too, I mean,
Yes.
that's a big,
Yeah.
if you wanna fit in, you gotta do that.
Yeah.
If you wanna enjoy your crumpets and tea and digest it,
Have to have fed.
yeah.
Alrighty. Now, transmission.
Yeah, and we talked about this.
Yeah.
Do we want to give any more detail to this initiation, like how this works?
I almost think, since we have so many strong and neutral traits, and and would be I think strong if you're gonna control it so well, maybe it has a really high fail rate, so people get in, you bring them to get inducted, and I love this person, or this person's really useful to us, and and then they can't join, they're just like not compatible or something.
Maybe they don't die, but they just don't turn.
Well, they could become
Or it could be
mindless.
a really negative effect. I mean,
You know that. I like this idea. So we talked about how some of the mental strain wears us out slowly over time. What if when you fail to bring someone into the family, they break instantly and become kind of really monstrous and really kind of dangerous? Like they want to feed, and they're insane and they're vicious and they're dangerous and they're undead.
Some people just don't have the mental capacity
to last that long, so they just snap.
Okay, yeah, so, transmission by feeding blood, high failure rate.
That is a basement I don't want to go into. Another one failed, throw them in the basement.
Yeah.
all the other crazies.
Or you have to try and kill them then and there, and then you have to deal with that fallout because now they're gone.
Somebody's family member, somebody's loved one who they brought in, somebody's close friend that they tried to initiate into family.
Someone's
they really wanted to bring in.
Yeah, or somebody who.
Or somebody's got to be at the office tomorrow to protect the family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our lawyer was torn apart by wolves last night, I'm sorry.
Okay, but you guys need to do something about those wolves. Okay, so yeah, I think that counts as a weak trait. So the next thing we address here are gifts. There's one that we are pretty much definitely going to want, the gift of regeneration, and this allows you to trade, like you get hunger and you heal physical damage.
Yeah.
That's important for undead vampires who don't necessarily heal naturally. The other ones, these gifts allow you to temporarily roll d12s for your general traits by trading hunger.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want all of these vampires to have a particular strong suit because they're vampires. So for example, to turn to the obvious example of Twilight, where all the vampires are very pretty and everyone loves them, we would give them the gift of the personal trait, and gift of personality, and then what they could do is they could gain hunger, and in exchange they could turn their personal trait into a d12 for a short time.
Making it
So
very strong and very charismatic.
they would all have that ability, that would be every vampire in the strain.
Can turn on the charm.
So I think we should definitely have gift of regeneration.
Yeah.
Okay.
The others, we could do one with personal trait, physical, spiritual, or professional, if we want to.
Yeah, professional, fishing ability, vampiric fishing ability seems kind of lame, so
Well,
I don't know if we want to go there.
Actually, the first one that my brain went to is professional, because professional is kind of for performing your job duties, but primarily it's for your public face. It's for
Okay.
functioning in society, so it's job success, making money, keeping your affairs in order, what people
Meeting your
think about you.
responsibilities.
Yeah.
Where-
That would make sense too for a prominent family like those.
Let me read you the description, you guys can decide whether we think it's a good fit. Gift of success. Vampires with the gift of success lead charmed unlives. They can perform better than humans in almost any professional or academic field and never seem to worry about managing their money or time.
I think, isn't the basis of ours is that they're worrying about managing their
That's
situation.
true.
Yeah.
So it
It's-
would be very fast to.
If they were too successful, this would not be much of a conflict.
Yeah, so I agree, that's a really good point. Maybe we should just leave it at regeneration.
What about, I don't know if I actually like this idea, but I'm gonna throw it out there. A family bond, so the gift of kind of having some kind of connection with family members, it's,
A gift of kin.
like unspoken bond or whatever, I don't know, slightly telepathic or something.
I kind of like it.
Yeah, I
So-
like that too.
So you
Like
kind
a
of,
empathic connection.
you have this pressure from all these old relatives sequestered away, maybe even the people who have been converted into, and they failed and they're monsters. You have that pressure pushing on you for what to do, but it also gives you a lot of knowledge about what to do. It's
And
kind
a lot of
it's a double-edged
resources.
sword. It's a lot of, pressure, but it's also information.
I like
Kind of complicated.
I like the idea of having a link among all of them, but I think it needs to be negotiated carefully because a big part of this is being in the house and not knowing what the other people are thinking.
And the secrets.
Oh,
of the
that's
family.
true. That
So-
would be, yeah.
If it were, I like the idea, but it would need to be limited. What I was thinking is maybe if you know when a member of the family is in trouble, but it's not like it's not a compulsion of any kind. It's not, and it's more like immediate. It's like if one of you is being physically attacked or is in immediate danger, the others know, and you can decide whether you want to do something about it. So this won't be a gift because the gifts are
Put that
specific
in like
things.
special rules.
Under special rules, we'll put it down. So the next thing to address is, which by the way, having that few gifts is a weak trait, so we're on balance pretty much. Weaknesses. Bans and compulsions, behaviors that you can't engage in, and compulsions, things that you have to do. Examples of bans are entering a building without an invitation, crossing running water, compulsions like compulsive counting. That's the traditional vampire stuff here. Do we want any of that?
Probably not the water thing, since we're fishing.
Or on boats. But I always like that idea, like,
Yeah,
that's
of
probably not a good
why
idea.
everybody can get away from old school vampires, you just gotta get on a boat. But
I mean, do we want them tied to their land that firmly to have that be, like, they have to stay, you know, or return to that land? Or is that just, or do we want, I'm thinking also like, if they have this ritual, maybe they have to continue the ritual or some part of it and that's their compulsion. I don't know what, if we wanna go that far, but.
I don't know. I think it's stronger if we have that stuff happen for personal reasons.
Okay.
Because I like the idea that they're like compelled to continue producing more vampires and they're compelled to stay on the land. But it's better, I think, if it's not a supernatural compulsion, if it's
Okay.
just the way people behave. Like,
Sure.
your
It's
family
kinda
life is so fucked up, you have to stay. Like, you
Yeah.
have to be here for your own reasons because this is how you were raised.
yeah.
Okay, that works.
This might just be me, but I really like, this was always the thing that I liked when I played Vampire the Masquerade. I always took the traits of hospitality, where like you couldn't go into a building unless you had been invited, and if someone was under your hospitality, you had to defend them. But that's just a thing I like, and I don't want to push my personal aesthetic here.
It'd be hard for family infighting if we have, you know, sure, son-in-law, oh, they're staying with me now, I can't.
Yeah, I was
All
gonna
these
say,
servants.
so much action happens in the house. And
Yeah.
if there's a hospitality thing, then it prevents so much stuff from happening.
Yeah, we can't have that, but I do kind of like the idea of perhaps wanting to be or needing to be invited into other people's homes. Like maybe it's specifically other people's homes. Like you can't break into other people's houses. Like you can go to their business, you can go to a church, you can go to any public building whenever you want to. But if you're going to someone else's home, you have to be invited in.
We could do the sacred ground thing too, as the same kind of limitation. I mean, I don't, because that could be a black mark against the families, you know, why aren't they in church? What's the deal with that? Like,
Yeah.
I like both of those. What if we do no sacred ground and have to be invited? Because actually, one thing that would really help with is, at least in my mind, one of the reasons to have this house that everyone keeps going back to is to hide from the sun. Basically, this is a place where you can function without being able to go outside in the day. If you can't go into other people's houses, you can't sneak in, regardless of your supernatural power, and you can't go to a church, historically that would explain why it's so hard to hide from the sun, and why you therefore need the family home.
okay, so are they weak to the sun? Is that?
That's where I like to go with it.
Yeah. It would explain the fair skin too, what the Irish said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about it, we're gonna get there, but that's what I think, because that gives you a really strong reason for the house, and it also allows you to have lots of things hidden in the house. Like, if there are old members of the family who are there, they have to stay in the house, they can't just go wander around in the woods or whatever.
Yeah.
So almost like increasingly weak to the sun, maybe as time
Sure.
goes on.
Yeah.
And so you get more and more sequestered in the house as you
Yeah.
go on.
As
So
you
you
get
have,
older.
it's kind of a compulsion to stay.
I actually really like that idea, and that's why the older members don't tend to wander away.
And the younger ones are more likely to go out and deal with.
And they don't understand, like, why are you so stuck in the house, like, just go out. You know, they don't really get the.
The sense
Do
of
we
it.
want to have a specific tell? We've already got this look, so do we want to have anything else that is like a big red flag? Or,
Well, we talked about the monstrous appearance that happens over time, so do we want to talk about what that looks like? I don't know if that's what you mean by tell exactly.
yeah, the tell is specifically about, like, this is a thing that can be used to identify you, regardless of how monstrous or not you appear.
Okay.
So I think we've pretty much got our bases covered with that. This would be for, like, if we wanted to do, say, the eye color, where it's like, anyone can instantly tell it. Even if your appearance hasn't changed to match the family at all yet, you're gonna have that eye color.
Okay.
Someone can look in a crowd and know you're a vampire if they know what vampires are like.
Okay.
I think we've kind of covered those bases.
Vulnerability to sunlight. I also like the idea of more vulnerable as time goes on, but I think maybe we should make the onset relatively quick, because that way, again, that drives people back to the house. So maybe we could have like, once you're initiated, you get like some basically honeymoon period where like the sun bothers you a little bit, but you're okay. And
Maybe it
then,
could be 5 years, that's enough time for you to go and establish yourself somewhere and have somewhat of a life, but then you start to realize how more and more sensitive to the sun you are.
5 years, okay. I can see 5 years.
It's a very short amount of time, I guess.
That's, I was thinking a very short amount of time, like you have some time to get your life in order. But I like 5 years because it's not like you've got such a short amount of time you instantly have to cut everybody off. It's like you have 5 more years, so it'd be very tempting to live those 5 years.
Yeah.
And then as you see them coming up, it's like, okay, your life's about to end, you're about to not be able to go out in the day anymore.
Yeah.
And that would be neat, and like you could have some people who sort of try and gradually taper out of their lives, and others who just like try and stick in it for as long as possible
Yeah, and
and
try to
then
grab
disappear.
Or
Yeah.
just spectacularly fail at the end of 5 years. I spent our life savings on lottery tickets, sorry. I'm gonna have to go now. See you later.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have like room for those different kinds of responses and their fallout. So, because it's not like you have died, you're just at the house and you only come out at night now.
Yeah.
So does sun, I mean, is this like a burst into flames? Is this like a, 3rd-degree burns?
Maybe,
what
yeah,
kind of...
very sensitive, photosensitive blisters perhaps.
Blistering is nice.
From going out, just like severe sunburn, almost.
I can see that, although I feel like for
Bursting
the,
the flames might be a little crazy.
well, I feel like for the older ones it needs to be dramatic. Because
So maybe they would burst into flames, and that's why they don't go outside anymore.
Well, again, I like this idea of a sort of a steep slope. Like
Yeah.
maybe during the first 2 years, it's
Like-
not pleasant, but you can do it. You need your sunblock, you need your sunglasses, but you're okay. Year 3, you burn at the drop of a hat. Year 4, you blister at the drop of a hat. Year 5, you're beginning to get 3rd-degree burns, like towards the end of that year. And any longer, it's like I will be ashes if I stay out in the sun.
And then
I
of
will
course
burn.
there'd be a blinding effect too.
Yeah,
at
you
some
can't
point.
see, you get dazzled.
actually I'd like it if maybe during the 5 years, the main thing that's going is your eyes. Like your eyes are getting more and more sensitive to the point where you could suffer like permanent blindness toward the end of that time if you go out without like
Okay.
some
Protection.
That'd be like an early warning for the vampire without other
Yeah.
people going like, whoa, that person's on fire, what happened?
Yeah,
You know?
or
Right.
oh my god, your skin.
Yeah, and then maybe like year 5 is where we start to get into like the serious sunburns and that sort of thing. And
Okay.
then after that it's really steep. Like year 6 you should not go out in the day.
Okay.
And then maybe, yeah, the dramatic like burning away. I sort of imagine like what you would want the death scene to be like if one of these reclusive, hundreds of years old creatures who's totally insane and wandered out of the house into the day, you'd want that to be a big deal. Like you'd want to see them fall apart in the sun.
Well, it'd be like the bubbling skin, and then perhaps they would combust.
Combust.
What if the aging is related to light, even small amounts of light? So the older they get, the less they want to be around even
They want to
tiny
be in the
amounts of
dark.
light. So it's almost like full sunlight on an old vampire would be like instant aging right before your eyes. Like super fast aging.
And then they crumble.
Maybe a little fire.
I kind of want to see like, more so than the aging, I want to see the fire. Like maybe this is just because I'm imagining them as very
Yeah.
monstrous. I want to see them die like a monster. Like
Okay.
I don't want to
Yeah.
see.
I do like the fire, that's pretty
The
exciting.
blistering, the slots of skin coming off.
Yeah.
Rolling
Flaming,
flesh.
yeah.
Yeah.
What this brings to mind, which is like a horrible thing, but
Oh good, please share.
I read this comic, and it was like somebody telling the story of like Hiroshima and his family, and talking about his mother's death, and like it read like a bad dream, like bones that had crumbled away, like she was like totally gone. That's kind of what I'm imagining. I'm imagining like total devastation of the person because of how unnatural this condition is. Like
Okay.
if you're at that age and you go into the sun, it's like you should not be. If you see the sun, then you are undone.
Okay.
Annihilated.
So not just like firecrackers going off in your chest kind of explosion, but like melting, dissolving, fire. all
That's
sorts of-
that's what I'm imagining.
Yeah.
I like it.
And it's a nice contrast to like, boy, I'm getting kind of headache when I go outside, you know?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. This is slightly uncomfortable.
And it would make sense too, because a lot of the newer people might not know even what it entails to fully be exposed to the sun. They do it, it's uncomfortable, they may know what's happened, but you know, the older ones might have seen it. So that's kind of a,
They have a much stronger sense of why it's important.
Other than sunlight, various things that can be used to kill them.
well, if we have sacred ground, we may consider sacred objects.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we feel about that.
Hmm.
I don't like killing with sacred objects, but I do like, you know.
You know what I would actually like? Because we have this whole like old world, new world thing. What if crosses worked until recently? Like by their reckoning. And like crosses have stopped working. They used to be repelled by them, but not anymore.
That'd be interesting.
Just to reflect like the world.
Do we
has
want to
changed.
have artifacts from old artifacts work and new artifacts don't? Or do we want to have just they don't work anymore?
What if it's a matter of superstition for the family? Like basically crosses have stopped working, we know that much. Would a relic work? Like, because maybe this family comes from a time when like, you know, this is a 2nd degree relic, this is a thimble that I touched to the finger bone of Saint whoever. It's, the church considers it a relic and it's a real relic, not one of these mass produced crucifixes.
Yeah.
The old members of the family feel like, I've been repelled by crosses, I know what that feels like. This new stuff is bullshit, but that's real. You know, that's gonna hurt me. Whereas the new people in the family feel like, you know, you guys are idiots and that's why crosses repelled me.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of a thimble.
Okay. And I like the religious thing because it really brings in the old world versus new world kind of mentalities about religion and you know, I think it's a good, just another source of conflict, which is interesting.
And I like that we're not coming down with an answer. Like, is God real in this setting? Is religion real in this setting? We don't know. It used to work, it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
They don't know, we don't know.